Welcome. Friday with Fred. Jody will be joining shortly. And this is a chance for you to ask questions, maybe give some insight. Uh, and hopefully, this is for all things like homeschool and family um, and motivation and wisdom and common sense, all things. So please say hi, make sure the sound's coming through, etc. We got some problems with internet, kind of blew up the system last week, and as a result, changing carriers and things should be a whole new game. So our goal is to have this on uh, Zoom, so you can, if you want to, sign in, see your face, ask questions, make it a little more lively. So I hope you're there. I hope you can hear us loud and clear. If you can, tell us like where you're from, and if you can hear us, that'd be great. So what I want to do is I, every time I want to teach a little something or kind of share something, give something to think about, and then take whatever questions you've got, and we've got questions too. But I was going to talk about writing. So there are a lot of things about writing. I have a writing course, and I think you're crazy not to use it, even if you have a writing curriculum, because our stuff is about helping your child find his or her own voice and really learning their own style and learning what goes into the right mindset to be uh, a creative writer, an effective writer. So if you're interested in that, I'll talk about that in the future, but you can learn all about it at advanced-writing-resources.com. So go check that out. Got Arizona, we got New York, man, all over the place. So let me talk to you about today's subject, this intro subject. And the intro subject is teen rebellion. Now, this is going to matter whether you have toddlers or teens, because it's all quite related. I have a video out there, the most popular video I've ever done. It's over 100,000 views last time I looked. And the video says the two reasons teens rebel. The only two reasons. And as far as I can tell, that's right. There are only two reasons teens rebel. So I want to explain what those reasons are, and then have you really make with me of what exactly we're kind of talking about. Well, this is working, so it's fine. I was trying to open the chat. So look, here's what goes on with teens. So the teenage years, now bear in mind they're roughly stages of development. So kids up through about 10 years old, we'd understand the classical model, or in the data stage. They like to memorize stuff, learn facts. It's data, data, data. Around 10, and especially towards 11, 12 and on, prefrontal cortex starting to come online. So they're in the um, logic stage. So this is where arguing and debate kind of comes in. And then later beyond that is the rhetoric stage, which is human communication, effectiveness, and persuasion, et cetera, working with other people. So understanding that can help you appreciate the fact that in many ways, the moment your kid gets into an age like, I'd say 14, 15, maybe a little earlier, 13, um, it's kind of your second chance. You're going to find out what you've done. And one of the problems we have is there are parents that are great with like young children, 5 and down. Their parents great with like 9 and down, or like 6 to 9 or 6 to 10. There's some that are really good with teens. But the problem is, if you try to parent a teenager the way you parent a 9-year-old, it's going to create a problem. And you're going to get to find out what's happened in your parenting, what has gone wrong, what has gone right, and it's going to show some of your challenges. And I'm going to tell you, there are many influences. Obviously, drugs can influence, but peer groups and the culture and social media, all that stuff. But still, there's huge leverage in your parenting. Don't ever ignore that. But think of it as your second chance. And your second chance means you get a chance to tweak some things that maybe you didn't install or help them learn in the beginning. No guarantees. They're their own people. They're not dominoes. You can't line them up, make them behave. They're not robots. You know, these dominoes can move. But here are the two reasons kids rebel. They either want to get out or they want to get in. We really did not have children that I ever recall rebelling, partly because I was mentored in understanding this, part of it because God was gracious, and part of it is because we had some kids that wound up in our family with more sense than we had. So, lucked out, we were blessed, but we use some wisdom too. And it works like this: if a child wants to get out, they can rebel because they are going to feel oppressed. They're going to feel um, um, like over controlled. And that's that thing where you're treating a 14-year-old like a 9-year-old. Because as a human being grows, they're going to want more freedom. They're actually more capable. They're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster. So they're just more capable of doing stuff. But if they feel oppressed and treated unfairly and the rules are bad, I'm not saying anything about whether the rules are right or whatever. I'm saying what's going on in them. So if they are in a place where they feel oppressed, pretty much when you're in prison, you want to escape. That's the way it goes, or so I hear. So so that's the one side. So one reason they rebel, you look at this rebellious behavior, it can look the same, but there can be two reasons. Kind of like a dog. A dog can bite because they're aggressive, but dogs can also bite because they're afraid. They're called fear biters. So if a teen feels oppressed and over controlled and overpowered, they want out. And sometimes they rebel to find somebody who will marry them and fight their battles for them. Sometimes they escape. Sometimes they escape into bad things. But they're wanting out and away. I've known lots of people who've gotten out and away and never had contact with their family again. It was that tough. And usually that involved some either uh, uh, mental issues or drugs, alcohol issues. The other reason kids want to rebel or do rebel is, as we discussed in that video, is that they want in. The actual rebellion is designed to get attention. And usually that attention, they're wanting to be included, they're wanting to be loved, they're wanting to be accepted in the family. And there are different things that can affect that. Some people are more sensitive to teasing than others. So the teasing thing can be a challenge. Some people are uh, grow up in systems where you've inadvertently favored a child over others. So generally, when you have an angel, you have to develop a demon. That's that kind of game. Because the angel says, "Hey, we did it right. See, we treated them the same," but you probably didn't. You know, I used to tell the kids, "Hey, I love your mother more than you. I love your mother more than you. I love you all the same, but we're not doing favorites. I'm not going to have a favorite kid. I'm going to love all of you. It's great." We in our family weren't that fond of friendships. I mean, best friends. We love friendships, but best friends. Because best friends, I'd read an article by a famous French tutor to the king, um, and Fenelon. And he talked about how friendship, best friends, creates jealousies. And you can see this. I've seen it at churches many times. A couple of ladies, maybe sometimes guys, but gals are, we know, are more relational. So this is kind of where I saw it more. They'd connect their friendship so tightly together that it would exclude others and create challenges. And then when one of them would say, "Hey, I've overdone this, I need to get back and connect with my husband," the other one would be offended, like they're breaking up. So we would tell the kids, you can have lots of best friends, not one. You can have several. And the same with the kids. We didn't want to favor the kids. I wanted to love their mom and love them, but it's not a competition, because when you start loving a child more than your spouse, it creates disruption in the dynamics in the family. And so it tends to push out the person. You pull somebody close and it pushes somebody else out. So when kids feel that and they're growing up, they can fall into rebellion for the sake of having some attention, being noticed. It's, I was like that as a kid before I was a teen. My older brother he was a teenager, he had friends and all, and I'd hang around until they had poke on me and beat me up, because I'd rather be included and mistreated than not a part of it at all. Now, obviously, somebody should have gotten me doing something different than bothering my brother and his older friends. But that's the game. And so if you look at it, you can rebel. Kids can rebel because they want out, or they rebel because they want in. And obviously, the solution is you want to, as they grow, give less control, more responsibility to them. There are consequences. But, if you're telling your 14-year-old to brush his or her teeth, don't do that. That's not a thing. That's a mistake. That's parenting an older child like they're younger. The same with, I've known of parents who still put out the clothes for their child when they're 17, put the belt through the loops, did everything for them. I wouldn't recommend that. I understand special needs and whatever, but that's not what you're aiming for. You want them to grow happy adults. And to do that, you want them loved, you want to include them in the family, and you want to ease off on the rules and let them make choices. Our senior year, our kids had no curfew, literally no curfew. They could stay out. They need to let us know. I don't even know if I cared where they were, because our thinking was, they're going to be this way. They're going to leave the home and go to college. Ours all did. And they won't have a curfew then. Why not let them experiment with it now? So they, if they goof up, we're there to help them. What they don't learn at home, God takes them on a field trip afterwards. And so all of our kids all tried it a time or two, and they went, that's not a thing. So it didn't ever turn into something, but it was the way we approached it. Now, we knew their maturity level, whatever. I wouldn't just go out and do that, but you want to think these things through this way. So a child, you back off the rules, give them more responsibility. Loving them, part of the trick to loving them would be spending time alone with them, like go to Starbucks and implement an agendaless conversation. You literally say to them, there's no agenda. There's nothing I want to talk to you about. I'm not going to lecture you. I'm not going to whatever. Anything you want to talk about, we'll talk about, or not. I just wanted to hang out and be with you. The other thing you can do, and start this young, hug your children in groups. You can hug them individually, but kids will, you hugged them longer and better, and you lifted them up off the ground or whatever, even if it's not entirely conscious. If you hug them in twos and threes, it kind of communicates we're all loved, so it's a really valuable external exercise in the game with your kids. Anyway, that is the basics of what I wanted to share about the 2 reasons teens rebel. And that video is out there somewhere if you want to look for it. So I probably ought to write a book on this someday. That'd probably be a helpful short book. Well, maybe not short, but be a helpful book. So what kind of questions you have? What's going on? How are things? What's better? Here's a good question. What's better since last week? Or better in the last month? If you listen to us being live and all these questions, tell us something. Yeah, group hug. Tell me something that's going on better, and Jody will be coming in here very shortly. Whoa. So here's Jody.
Hey, everybody. Get settled here.
Am I on your way?
Quite good.
Cool. What do you want to say?
I don't know. Morning.
We talked about,
Happy Friday.
We talked about teen rebellion, about group hugs, hugging the kids in groups. We didn't talk about, in our understanding, we have a very traditional, controversial view of design, of maleness and femaleness and that kind of stuff. So I might get in trouble here. Hope not. But our orientation was, on balance, the boys, we wanted them to be fond of their mom but kind of favor their dad, and the girls to be fond of their dad but favor their moms. So we kind of had an orientation that I would kind of deal with the boys, especially once they hit teens, and that worked out well because their testosterone poisoning made them just want to debate whether they could take their mother or not. And so, I could deal with them a little different way and work pretty well. And by the same token, our daughter Laura, just a tough look from me would be too much. So Jody did way better job in bringing her along that way. So that and it all relates into the context. Still, as you grow, you want them to be their own individuals, their own choices, their own life. Be supportive of that, so that's not over controlled, and yet you don't want to over favor any of the kids. You don't want to love one over the others. Bedtime, best practice. Let's see if I can make this chat work. Seems like I knew how this worked at one point. Donate, support, demo.
Don't ask me.
Do you see chat? Chat. Ta-da. All right. So I have a way to get this to show, right? There we go.
Oh, wait, it went away.
Bedtime best practices. Any suggestions, little ones? Yeah, so it's really funny. Some years ago, a lady named Amy, I was coaching homeschooling, and we were talking about it. I said, what do you want? She said, I want my kids to go to bed on time and not get up. I said, great, we can do that. And I explained to her a plan, and she went to her. I said, you can't do this without your husband agreeing. He said, well, that won't work, but you can try it. And in 3 days, and from then on, kids went to bed and didn't get up. It's really great. And the reason it worked is because I have magic knowledge. Like Merlin somehow was born old, and I'm still going backwards, but I have this magic knowledge. And my magic knowledge is I sort of understand how humans work, kids work. So like it's like kids are internally motivated about external things. So things they want, they kind of go towards, and things they don't want, they kind of avoid. And so we'd like set up a game to where if you go to bed and you have a good night's sleep, life is better. And if you don't go to bed and don't get a good night's sleep, life is worse. And we kind of made that clear, and everybody figured it out. So that didn't really answer the question. But best bedtime practices for little ones.
Well, we didn't have a long bedtime routine. I'm thinking about one of our grown children and their bedtime routine, and they read to the kid for like an hour before they fall asleep.
I think it's a couple of them.
I don't know.
I think the other.
We were kind of more like, maybe we read a bedtime book, prayed with them, but it was pretty much, it's time to go to bed. We've bathed, we've got our PJs on, we've gotten water, and it's night time. And I don't know if that's just from having a whole bunch of kids or what, but we weren't into the long drawn out process of putting a kid to bed. It's just it's bedtime now. That might sound hard. And then we did have, as the kids got older, the older ones got to stay up a little bit, like 15 minutes later than the other one.
Yeah, in our system, age came with privilege. So as you got older, you got to stay up later. Keep going.
So, and that worked to an extent, because for quite a while we had 3 of the boys in the same room. So the little one would be put down, the younger one, and kind of stay awake. But that was
they'd
fun.
wait
We
for
didn't,
the older brother to come tell stories.
Our thing was more stay in bed. It's bedtime. You can't make somebody go to sleep.
Right. But it matched our philosophy. So bear in mind, we believe that we're trying to grow children who can teach themselves. Well, the same thing with going to sleep. They need to learn to put themselves to sleep. So our orientation was, you don't have to sleep. You can stay up all night if you want to. Just don't get out of your bed, And generally, by then, you just want to go to sleep. And we also learned that we would get them up at the same time every day, and that kind of sets that circadian rhythm or sleep clock or whatever it is to be more stable. So they're usually ready for bed, but they understood the game. We calmed down. We might read to them. When they get older, I'll tell you this, older kids, you said littles, but older kids, I would go in, and I did it with some of the youngers too. At the end of the day, they're ready to debrief, especially teenagers. But most kids, they're playing and busy, but you go in and you lay in the bed, I'd lay on their bed with them for a little bit and just hang out and let them talk about whatever we want to, and work great with the older ones. I remember doing it with Brooks, our youngest time. He was like 5, and I laid there for a little bit, and he finally looks at me and says, "Dad, could you leave me alone? I got some things I want to think about," which sounds like him today.
There you go.
So there you go. They just learned it.
And there was another time when our oldest was probably maybe 3, and he was waking up at night. He would come into the bedroom. I would walk him back to bed, make sure he went to the bathroom, put him back in bed, and left. But it became a habit, even though I fell right back to sleep and didn't think that much about it. Fred realized that was happening one night, and he goes, "Okay, this is needs to stop." So tell him how you taught Trip how to turn over.
Poor Trip. Well, no, he just, yeah, I didn't know they were getting up. I, I was asleep. And so they got every night. And I just showed him, look, you wake up. I think I've shared this before. You wake up, and you go, oh, wake mommy. But I failed to tell you that you can turn over too. And he said, what's that? And I'll show you. And I got in his bed and I pulled the sheet up and I went, oh, wait, did I wake up mommy? No, I'm going to turn over. And I turned over, and you close your eyes and you go back to sleep. And I said, if you'll do that 5 nights in a row, I'll take you out and we'll buy some ice cream. He did it 5 nights in a row. We had ice cream, never looked back, never a problem.
Yep.
So that was Trip. Homeschooling tips for parents who struggle with mental health. I don't know if there's anything you can say, but I thought I'd ask. No, it's a really good question. And obviously um, it's not detailed here on what the nature of the mental health is. So I'll just categorize it. You know, mental health is going to roughly be something like a struggle with anxiety or a struggle with depression. So, by categories, depression would be tiredness, lack of motivation, generally be other things, but sadness, that kind of thing. So, there's not a lot of energy in it. Anxiety can have over too much energy or over control of what's going on. So um, when you understand your own challenges, what you're better off doing is not parenting, excuse me, not homeschooling by intuition or feelings, but more by building a system so that we're doing the same things every day. I mean, let's just take an analogy, a stupid analogy. Let's just say you cook, and the way you cooked is kind of what you were feeling. So, like if you felt like you were really wanting more salt, you might load it up with salt. Or if you felt like you were over salted, you'd leave less salt. Or maybe you're cooking the meal and gosh, we just need more sweets, and you just made all pastries for supper. So that kind of approach would not be healthy, because the kids are having to learn too. They don't always feel like studying math or reading or whatever it is, but we want to learn to regulate and deal with that thing. And a lot of the mental struggle health issues we've got, one, we need to learn skills to think better and run our brain better. But a lot of it is also built around some scaffolding that helps us. So I have a tendency to be a bit more, uh, attention deficit, oh, squirrel, ADHD type stuff. So I scaffold my life with things like I'll put things on the schedule. So I'll put it in Google Calendar. But I've also automatically set it up to get 2 reminders. I get a reminder 6 hours before it happens, and then about 15, maybe 30 minutes before it happens. And those 2 reminders, one, the 6 hours gets it in my mind that it's that day, and the 30 minutes gives me a chance to come into reality with time, because I'll get focused and not be aware of time passing. And so, or try to get focused. And so that would be an example of scaffolding. But when you set up systems, like we study at this time, we do this, you do this independently, etc., then whatever you're struggling with doesn't have to invade the system. Because if your mental health invades the system, then it's all about your mental health. And mom doesn't feel like it today, and she does this today. And that kind of chaotic world develops a lot of chaos in the kids. So, if you can be in the room and model it, that's great. If you have things you have to do for periods of time, but the system helps them work independently, that can work too. That can be great. So that's where I would go. And obviously, you know, one of my premises I learned a long time ago in counseling is that we're all pre-neurotic, every one of us. And we need to just talk with a friend sometimes to say, yeah, you're pre-neurotic. It's okay. You're going to be okay. Like the book we need, I'm okay. I'm not okay. You're not okay, but that's okay. So a lot of range of these things are that. If you need professional help, obviously, counselor, pastor, what your orientation is, go get that. But by and large, having systems, where the children learn to bathe themselves, to brush their own teeth, to do their things, it's not dependent on your state of mind. It's dependent on we're following the system. And then you work on getting your state of mind and mental health into the game. Another piece, too, is both parents being involved to some degree helps balance all that out. Because even if you're fine mentally, each of you bring different things to the story. And so it's helpful to the kids. So, anything you want to add?
Good. No, routine. This is just what we do, whether mama's feeling well or not. This is what
Right.
happens this time every day,
And that's why we have
routine.
that course, how to homeschool in 30 minutes a day.
And then
Now, the 30 minutes is for you. The kids take much longer. So about setting up systems and processes.
Yep.
So it's quite worth it. You can check
Good
it out at independenthomeschool.com. Do you all have any tips or advice for moving young children while homeschooling? We just moved a year ago, and we'll be doing much better, bigger move a year from now. Kids are 7, 5, and 1. Yeah, we moved in the middle of homeschooling. I have a very clear answer, but I bet Jody has one too, and I'm going to like both of them. What are you thinking?
Golly. Uh, well, one thought is, hey, don't just relax. 7, 5, and 1. Hey, if you need to take, if the packing and the unpacking and all takes several months or whatever, and you need to not do a lot of schooling during that time, you're golden. Your kids are very young. It's don't stress everybody. I don't even know if that's the kind of advice you're looking for. But
wait, you're saying age, stop? Are you kidding?
At that age, even the 7-year-old, just say, okay, you can read. You need to just be over there reading or helping me pack or whatever it is. But yeah, you can. Well, that age is gonna.
And you could still in that stop and read to them for 20 minutes. Get them play. There are some things you can do to give a semblance of it, or you can just declare it. Hey, we got a window here of 2 weeks. Y'all need to behave, help, dust the baseboards, watch us unpack, etc. None of this is my answer. I'm just going along with you.
Sure, it's not. Go ahead.
Well, you don't have to be sure.
Well, go ahead.
So, do you have any tips or advice for moving young children while homeschooling? We just moved a year ago, and we'll be doing much better move a year from now. We just moved a year ago, and we'll be doing a much bigger move a year from now. So, sounds like military, or the business is growing. So, I don't think, in my mind, moving has anything to do with homeschooling. So, like, we would homeschool on vacation. Who does that? We did. Yeah. If that didn't suit you, you picked the wrong family. Do a better job. So what I mean by that is we didn't do full vacation, but they would do math. Uh, they do every other day when they're little. Do you remember? And then they read on their own, etc. But they usually we had math experience. Our vacations were about 3 weeks because it's two to travel, two back, and that's in the context of what I was doing. We needed a bigger see family and all because we live so far away from all of our family. So in that period of time, you'd knock out three, young children math. Half of them are going to forget most of it. So they do like half of math. I remember we did it in the car. We just had math time and driving. Literally, everybody's doing their math. Or we might have a reading time. Or I homeschooling. I remember I went and found a jellyfish, put it in some salt water table, and taught them how to describe. And we spent time drawing the jelly and doing a full description, writing up observation of what it was like and what it looked like. Just trying to teach them a little skill I knew that they would use. So I guess what I'm saying is if you get a routine about homeschooling, that should be able to work even in the moving. So it doesn't matter. Couldn't you go to a library and homeschool? Couldn't you go to a park and do it? I mean, if the kids, they're 7, 5, and 1, doesn't count, when they're older. Can't they just do it? That's our routine. Why the environment dictate what we're doing? It might be more conducive, it might be easier, but it's part of life too. Sometimes, you have to brush up your teeth. Sometimes you're in the woods and you got to brush your teeth by getting a little mountain water, right? So you got to bend down. That's not really a sink. Well, learn to be flexible. And I would just say it's not much different that, they need materials, they need something to write on. They can take their books with them. So we did reading, writing, and math. So what do we need? Math book, math workbook, writing workbook. I mean, notebook, and books to read. Like, that's not that complicated. And then take off what time you need to pack, move, do whatever you want. That's kind of the way I think about it.
If that wasn't quite your question, ask again. But that's what we got.
Exactly. I'm going to say great advice, but I think it was to an earlier question. So whatever other questions, think them up, tell them to us. I had found, I was going through all the YouTube comments today, and I found this one that I really liked. I've addressed it before, but I thought I'd throw it out. I see your question. No, that's the same one. So let me throw this one in here just while y'all are thinking. Did I not paste? Do you all have any tips or?
That's the moving. Sorry.
Spelling is the leading cause of my anxiety. It's so bad I flat out refuse to take notes in front of others and have quit jobs where I was required to speak, write in front of large groups. It's impacted my life in so many negative ways. Someone else added on, I totally agree with what they're saying. I too suffer from what he's going through. I fear spelling or writing in front of people because of making spelling mistakes. It's been a burden in my life since primary school. I fear jobs that require me to write, thus preventing me a lot of job opportunities. Plus the judgment, and they spell judgment correctly, which I greatly appreciate, and ridicule of others makes it worse. I've tried years to relearn English rules, read more, practicing words in the dictionary, yet I still forget to spell words that I've written correctly before. I'm a university student, usually get by. All right, so this is a big issue, right? So your kids, if they don't, they could grow up with this kind of thing. They get ridiculed and messed up. I remember being mortified in second grade in church one morning because we were writing something for church. I don't know what we were writing, but second grade, and I could not remember how to spell the word the. It mortified me, but I asked and I found out, and I've since then never forgotten. The problem is our approach to spelling with all the other things in there, the dyslexias and the dysgraphias and the dyspellingas. I'm sure that's one. And confusion of words. And English isn't that easy anyway, because you can spell the same word, many different ways. Um, but I'm going to tell you what you want to teach your children, what you want to teach yourself is a training of learning with spelling to not guess. Not guess. If you look at a word and you don't know if that's how you spell it, don't use that word, or mark it so you can look it up later. Put an SP by it is what I do. So that tells me to look it up. I mean, a lot of our technology lets us look in the moment, but I don't like to slow down a lot of times. Teaching your children not to guess. When people guess, it means they don't know how to spell it. If you don't know how to spell it, you can look it up and learn how to spell it by practicing it, like you said. You could eventually learn it. Or you can pick a word you do know how to spell. So he spoke with the air of grandiloquence. I don't know how that one goes. He spoke with the air of grandiosity. Maybe I don't know how. He was a grand. Every day, I'll ask to spell something. Every day.
We have so many instant tools nowadays.
Yeah.
It's marvelous, but I get the panic of if they're in front of people on a whiteboard or something like that as an adult, not knowing, and just turn to the audience and go, I need a little help here. just make it a light thing. I'm a horrible speller, but I have something important to tell you.
Exactly. So you want to train yourself not to guess. The way we teach you to do it, of course, is you are letting your children write and not worry about spelling. They just mark the words. My deal with the words you know how to spell, and I'll spell them for you. If you don't mark a word, you're going to have to look it up. And so at the beginning, they just kind of marked every word almost, which I didn't care. That's fine. Because what it's trained them to do is not guess. When a person misspells things, they're either not conscious and are just spelling like I do there, THEIR for THERE, just because I'm just so used to doing it. But if they're not conscious, that's one thing. But mostly it's we're guessing, like maybe that's it. If you train yourself to never guess, that's not a spelling thing. That's a not doing thing. Just, I'm not going to guess. You will, by that structure, figure out words you can spell, or start making a list of words and figure out how to spell them. And then with me, if you have my memory course, you know tricks I have. So, I remember implement. I was misspelling it constantly. Implement with an I. And I finally said to my brain, how would you remember it? My brain says, I talk to my brain a lot. My brain says, I don't know, it sounds French, like les implement. And so once I heard that, I said, that sounds fine, because implement, IMPLE, implement, not implement, imple, les implement. So from then on, I remember how to spell it, if I ever chose to use it. But that's the game. You want to train yourself to quit guessing. You want to train your children not to guess. You want them to know the word, and they either need to use a word they know how to spell, or that they're guessing and can look it up later. And as far as I'm the only one that saying this, and it's so obvious, maybe to like, really, what's going on? What does the writing course include? The one offered on your website. What does it teach? It's not a basics course. I'm grammar, because we know from 100 years of study that the more grammar you study, the worse you write. We know this over and over and over, and it's because you get up in your head. And grammar is democratic. It changes and adjusts over time. So you can't use the rules from Elizabethan English now, or you'll sound, like a very poorly written Shakespeare. What our course is about is helping them understand the distinction between being about correct writing and effective writing. So we do want at least correct writing, and we do teach a way to understand grammar and spelling and punctuation. But it's more of a writing by ear, because you're already hardwired for language. So I teach them how to tap into what's inside of them to know if their grammar's right, or if their punctuation's right. And it's really cool. And I found there's a guy named Rudolph Flesch wrote Why Johnny Can't Read and some other books that had figured this kind of stuff out and stressed it too. And it comes out of my background in linguistics, and so I figured out a way to tap into your intuitive understanding of language instead of trying to remember rules. I've got a book somewhere, the 31 Uses of the Comma. I will put it out. Really? I've got to learn 31 rules to use. No. You know what you need? You pause when you read it out loud and see how long your pause is. Because if it's a really long pause, you probably need it. If it's a short pause, that's a comma. That's how you read it. If you don't want to pause there, don't put a comma there. I just told you something profoundly magic. So in the writing course, what we're doing is we're showing them the correct writing, but then how to do it, so how to make it interesting. And we're teaching them steps of writing that work from okay to get help to make it great. So it includes mom and dad in the feedback loop, but to get off their perfectionism, we language work, grammar works, the spell, how to come up with ideas. So there's a whole thing of understanding how your game works, how you can always come up with ideas. We teach them so a lot of things that are getting them to figure out what does your voice sound like, and how do you get your head trying to do it all right, free to just start getting words on paper. The most profound thing we've noticed is, especially with learning disabled or LD type challenges, kids will go from writing a sentence to novels, to pages and pages.
Really frees them up.
Yeah, because they get freed up to not lock down on that. There is an essay course with it, in combination. But part of my premise is that if you can learn to write a good sentence, you're going to be able to write everything, because all paragraphs are is a bunch of sentences. And so that's what we're wanting to get the kids to understand, and then grow in their confidence by learning to practice writing every day. And then we show you an exact way to give feedback so that confidence grows. So advanced-writing-resources.com.
Can you put that up there?
Probably not. Maybe so.
There is an essay course, he said, that goes along with it. There's not anything specifically about research papers. That was part of the question.
Yeah. So, and we also, it comes with like a 60-day money back guarantee. If it doesn't work for you, just send in the workbook. I'm honestly, if you do it a year later, here's the whole workbook. We tried it. It didn't work. I've almost never gotten feedback. Almost never has anyone who completed the 21 lessons, and they're short, 20, 30 minutes a day, maybe a little more sometimes, finished the 21 lessons, didn't wake up and start doing well. In fact, what we do with our kids, and we recommend, is to go through the course again several times in homeschooling, because you own it for life. So
we do about
4 times,
year.
5 times through, because every time through you're a different person, a different level. And the way we did the exercises, they're not the same. It's like a starter, but it's going to be your level writing about it. So an 80-year-old can do the course. Other questions? I had one more here that's pretty common that I saw on YouTube today. So seriously, you have any question about anything? Honestly, I have opinions about things I've never even heard of. So this question, someone posted, and this is we probably even addressed it before, but it is a common kind of conversation. So I don't think we got it all in there, did we? I know this is a couple of months late, but I have a question. When the hour's up and they've only done half the questions, how do you get them to finish the rest in a timely manner? This is, I think, math, I guess. They could dawdle through playtime or make it up at bedtime. I'm going to read the rest of it. I guess that's where you start the same lesson over the next day. Yeah, they're wrestling with that. So here's the game. Limits create focus. You need to understand that principle. So limits create focus. When you have a time limit, that creates focus. Even when you put your thumb on the end of a hose and you limit how much water can come out, it focuses that stream outward. So it's a limits game. And if you don't put a time limit on something, you're meaning they have forever. And basically, in my experience, if you have forever, you'll take forever. I mean, there are exceptions, but for the most part, that's how it goes. So, what we're wanting to do with the kids is create a time limit of some type. And a time limit means that it's really a timeline. So, let's say you have an hour and you have 10 problems. So, roughly the timeline is um, in every half hour, you've done five each. So, every quarter hour, you've done two and a half, something like that. Is that funny?
Yeah.
Is
Sorry.
the math throwing you off?
No, it's just
Yeah, but it's roughly a timeline. You have 10 problems. If you had six problems in 1 hour, it's one every 10 minutes, something like that. But there's a stopping point. Okay, there's a stopping point. And for that to work, they've got to be required to stop. If you just allow them to keep going, there's no stop. If you stop and then have them work on it later in the day, um, like before supper or after lunch, or depends on how you do it, before bedtime, I would recommend a time that's not fun. You know, like if people are actually playing outside right before supper, maybe they have to come in 30 minutes earlier and finish. See how close they get to finish. So you got time after. What happens to a human being is because they're self interested, they'll figure out if you're being fair, if they can get their work done in that period of time, what are they going to do? They're going to go, God, this isn't worth it. Why not just go ahead and finish it early in the day? But it's going to take a bit of consistency. Dawdle through playtime. What is it saying?
didn't see it.
Play. They don't get to go. So again, there's a focus happening. And and if you don't want to do, it's great. I'm just telling you, in our experience, is that when you set up a time period, okay, math's done, put your pencils down. It's good training for life because this is how bosses and tests are going to go. Now it's time to read. Reading time's done. Writing time's done. However you do it. And what they have to do is they get to learn to manage their time. And they need that kind of challenge too, especially if they're a little more on the hyperactive and aren't good at working type memory. They need to tune into that. But that stopping and say you'll have to finish it later, that's how you do it. When I started a private school back in West Texas some years ago, one of the things I implemented, I still think they do it, that you could actually, most of it was on papers that they wrote. Um, they could, if they didn't like their grade, write the papers many times as they wanted to. So if they wanted an A, they get an A. Start with C, rewrite it. We'll get feedback, and they could redo those papers. A lot of it was a classical model, so they were doing a lot of writing papers. But what most of the kids eventually learn is, yeah, why not just write it the first time so I don't have to redo it? Write it well. And it's that similar thing. You want to create a deadline and honor that deadline, and then keep honoring the other deadlines like bedtime. You don't want the child to control the clock. You want the clock to control the child, and control is an overstatement. But they want to learn to work inside of that game.
And there might be a short period of time that you need to kind of wake them up out of this bad habit that they have of dawdling, but make a big consequence or a bigger reward for a couple of weeks just to show them that they actually can get this many problems done in this much time. And so maybe for a week or two, okay, if you don't get it done, there's no whatever, computer, TV, whatever it might be. And if you do for 3 days in a row or 5 days in a row, whatever, then we're going to do ice cream or something like that. And that would just be a temporary thing, just to kind of, you can do this. You can do this, and we're not going to play. We're not going to play the doggle game anymore.
And let me stress something. So when we use rewards and consequences, rewards especially, we're not trying to do them forever. We're doing them long enough so they can realize I can do it. Because what you're hoping they eventually do is internalize it. And it's not like going through life bribing. The reality is that's life. If you don't incentivize, I mean, you're doing it anyway. You don't even realize it, etc. That's part of how to be a first thing. You just want to nail down that they can manage the habit, and the way I would understand it, they don't quite get habits. I don't know what people mean by them. It's a habit. If I have a habit of getting up every day at a certain time, but I go on vacation and I violate it, is it really that easy to break? What do we mean by habit then? And what I would say, it's a pattern. It's basically a comfortable pattern. So you've gotten to a place that is comfortable. So once they have a writing habit, it's comfortable for them to write. They can just get down to work and do it. Math habit, it's comfortable for them to do it. It's going to be uncomfortable at first because they don't know how to do it. They haven't learned how to get their routine and system. They don't know how to regulate their emotions and get over, I don't feel like doing it, or so-and-so smarter or whatever. I don't know what's in kids' heads. Same stuff that's in adults' heads. So that's, pretty much what you're up to. You're trying to develop good habits, but habit meaning a comfortable pattern for whatever's going on. We need a comfortable pattern for going to bed. We started out today. We need a comfortable pattern for doing our math, for our writing, for our reading. We need a comfortable pattern for how you interrupt mom and dad. We need a comfortable pattern for how you share your toys with other people, right? So these are all kind of what we mean in training, where kids can learn how to do it. You can just learn how to do it. You can learn to stick your hand out and say, hello, my name's Tabitha, and you can be polite, you can be respectful. That's all part of the game. All right, any last question? I think I've hit them all so far. Don't be afraid to ask. We've got 6 minutes. That's at least 6 questions. Homeschooling is an incredible opportunity, especially in this day and age, with the messes that we see out there, to equip children to be leaders and examples. I look at all the millennial stuff, and even my degree, our kids are not millennials, even though they're millennials or Gen X. You can say it,
they don't
whatever.
Match those descriptions.
They don't match that stuff. And I even noticed that Jody and I grew up in the 70s. And so in the 70s, there were, all our friends were half our age, actually turned that way, and rebellion and power and whatever it was. And then, you know what? They got older and they put on ties and kind of grew up. So don't underestimate that stuff at all. So you're so, Suzanne. It was a blast. It was fun. It was helpful. Look, if you hadn't subscribed to that channel, YouTube channel, please. What? Okay. Please, YouTube channel. Please tell your friends. We're going to move this when the internet gets fixed to. You'll have a way to sign up, or I'll let you know a link for Zoom, so we can actually talk. You don't have to. You can hide your face, but you can put things in the chat on Zoom, but it's going to be a little more interactive, and hopefully helpful. So along with the writing, it should be 1 hour a day. I've all heard 1 page a day, front and back. What if y'all finish this too early? How'd you manage that? Great question. Yeah, I don't care about an hour. Our kids wrote for about 20 minutes and they could fill up 3 pages, but when they got older. So what we did is we had an hour assigned, and the hour covers writing, getting feedback, and doing your rewriting of any sentences or parts you need to do. That could easily take an hour, even if it's one page. And you just got to figure it out for the kid. Our view was if you finished early, 15 minutes early or whatever, or 30, you can either go on to your next subject or you can go do something else. Go play till it's time. Let's say you start at 7:30. You got your writing done and corrected by 8. Don't start 30. Well, congratulations. You got 30 minutes. You can start earlier so you can finish earlier, or go read something. Go do something. Don't bother anybody else, but you're free of that. In the course time, 0.0 play. All of them, I want to go to the next subject, get this done, get on with my day.
Just a little tweak. It was, they do say, you're right, 1 hour back, front and back. We had 2 separate pages. It was easier to mark 2 separate pages than a front of a page, and we would just staple them together. I know that's a dinky thing, but every other line, leaving a line between so that you could do the corrections. So every other line, 2 separate pages are easier to mark, and then we upped ours to 3 pages, I think. I don't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Hope that helps. Lots of other YouTube videos out there. Lots of other stuff we've got available. Obviously, our course says check independenthomeschool.com. There are 2 hours of free videos of how we homeschool there. So if you haven't gotten that, get it. Independenthomeschool.com. And you can check out the writing course too, along with our other courses. They're all out there. Writing course, advanced writing resources with hyphens.com. Anyway, we love you guys. Hope this was helpful.